So to continue, the next one of the Forsaken is Asmodean, and here we go.
Adam Necessin was different from the other Forsaken in that he was never truly a warrior or ruler. He was an artist, a musician of extraordinary talent. However, his desire for immortality and a life of endless indulgence led him to turn to the shadow, believing that serving the Dark One would grant him eternal fame and luxury. Unlike Forsaken like Ishmael or Grendel, Asmodean was not particularly ambitious. He did not seek power for conquest, he sought it to ensure his own pleasure and survival. However, when he was freed, he found himself caught in the middle of a war that he wanted no part of. In a shocking twist, Asmodean defected from the Forsaken and became Rand al'Thor's unwilling teacher, training him in the One Power. Rand needed guidance, and Asmodean, fearing the other Forsaken more than Rand, reluctantly took the role of his instructor. However, his time with Rand sealed his fate. The Forsaken saw him as a traitor, and in the end, he was mysteriously assassinated. His death remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of the Wheel of Time, with multiple theories about which Forsaken finally silenced him. 8. Moghedien. Moghedien, originally Lila Moral, was a Forsaken unlike any other. She did not command armies like Demandred or Samel, nor did she openly manipulate nations like Grendel. Instead, she was an assassin, a saboteur, and a master of subtlety, preferring to work from the shadows rather than confront enemies head-on. Her strength.
So this is the one that Mindef's Nynaeve and the Princess of Andor, and gets the wristlet, which in the book they need 13 Aes Sedai to cage him, but here we've got the American deep state adding the slave collar with 2 bracelets, so you need 2 women to control Rand al'Thor, the Dragon Reborn, which was a deviation from the book. So this is the one you can use from the screen if you've got this Forsaken service to probe into the brains of anyone you like in order to make memories vanish and also be unnoticed when you wish, and all the other traits, which is perfect for, as you can see, American psychic warfare ops from the CIA to go abroad and target important individuals using this technology, all hooked up by their nanotechs, the quantum AI and CERN and the Borg, so they can delete, for example, things in the target's brain, which at present time, if I was American, I'd be deleting from the Ayatollah, the whole thought package of attacking America and doing the same to a foreign minister going to see Wyckoff in Oman. So it's not that this stuff doesn't have capabilities. The only problem is it's being fully taken over by yours truly, so the Americans have lost that capability to delete the Ayatollah's whole thought package to destroy America. So you can see psychic warfare, rather than being something that has no bearing on history, is vital. And the same, for example, with Gorbachev and the Kremlin, use it to delete any thought of opposing the West. And if you wipe that all out, what you just leave is détente and perestroika, and you delete the communist central system of economics that funded all aspects of the Soviet Union, apart from the black market, which of course was rife. And then of course you get the fall of the Soviet Union, and of course perestroika, when they give up their communist central economy and go to capitalism when they're not ready for capitalism, all thanks to Jeffrey Sachs and co, who's a professor who's on Judge Napolitano's channel and is one of the chief culprits for the economic destruction of post-Soviet Union Russia. So one can see psychic warfare is vital to history, and it's been going on for a long time. Don't think the Stargate project with the Defense Intelligence Agency wasn't using this capability on Gorbachev on the Kremlin. That would have been their prime target, and that's called remote influencing or coercion. So you want a Grendel Forsaken. There's only one, so if you haven't got it, tough titties. Let's continue.
Stealth, deception, and psychological warfare. She struck only when she was certain of victory, vanishing before her enemies even knew she was there. This is why she was given the name Moghedian, after a deadly spider that lurks unseen before delivering a lethal bite. One of her most terrifying abilities was her skill in Tel'aran'rhiod, the world of dreams. She could manipulate dreams, invade minds, and strike without warning, making her a nightmare opponent for those who did not understand the realm of dreams. Despite her cunning, Moghedian's greatest weakness was her cowardice. She avoided direct confrontation at all costs, which led to her eventual capture. She was enslaved with a mind-controlled...
So one can see another aspect of remote viewing where you remotely view the target, be it Gorbachev, and instead of remotely viewing the physical Gorbachev, you remotely view the dreams of Gorbachev, and then you pull Gorbachev into your intent space in the second attention, which is Tel'aran'rhiod, all described in Castaneda's book, The Art of Dreaming, where intradimensional scouts enter your dream and then try to pull you out of your dream into their reality. So if you want to know all about this technology, read Carlos Castaneda's The Art of Dreaming. So you can see remote viewing. When you're lucidly waking, you can remotely view a sleeping person, pull them out of their dreams into your intent space, which of course is you visualize while daydreaming, or a place you have made which requires time and effort. I of course have built my own intent space for myself where I live alone, and B, I spent decades building the intent space for Lucifer, where I can pull all of my targets into Omega Hell, built by me, incepted of course with the MP3s where I describe the Hell Space Hospital, where you go into the Hell Space Hospital and then you're psychically implanted so you never wake up again, and your awareness, soul, spirit is pulled into my Omega Hell Space, where of course over a period of decades I built it, and now Lucifer runs it for me. So you might think this is all fiction and fantasy. No. Remember, you can remotely view the Wheel of Time via the book, plural, or the Amazon series. Step into it, and if you're a Forsaken, you can actually live in that intent space, because that intent space was created by me. So thief beware. When Janklo stole the first part of my fantasy book, and Jordan embellished it, did a wonderful job, there of course was the Faustian payment to make, which was their eternal torture with the rest of their ilk. And all these new powers and potentials which weren't there were added to the source. When I say we're making new source, how are you making new source? I'm making new source by making all of the Wheel of Time real, in reality. What do you think of that, cameraman? Mind-blowing. Exactly, it's good though, isn't it?
Forced to serve her enemies as punishment for her failure. 9. Eval Ramman was once a highly respected historian, researcher, and philosopher during the Age of Legends. He was known for his brilliant mind, deep understanding of human civilizations, and knowledge of lost cultures. However, unlike his contemporary scholars, Balt Hamill was not content with merely studying history. He wanted to shape it, to leave his own mark upon the world. Though he was never as politically influential as figures like Ishmael or Demandred, Balthamel's research led him to unearth ancient secrets of power, including forbidden knowledge about the shadow. This, combined with his growing thirst for pleasure and decadence, led him down a dark path. In the Age of Legends, he was renowned for his indulgent lifestyle, frequenting extravagant parties, secret societies, and pushing the limits of morality in pursuit of personal enjoyment. When the War of Power broke out, Balt Hamill openly defected to the Shadow, believing that under the Dark One's rule, he would be free to indulge in any pleasure he desired without restriction. His betrayal of humanity was not motivated by ideology or hatred, it was purely selfish. He saw the forces of the light as restrictive, bound by laws and ethics, while the Shadow offered freedom to do whatever one pleased. However, his greed and arrogance led to his downfall. When Luz Daring and his followers sealed the Dark One and the Forsaken away, Balt Hamill was trapped in the Bore for over 3,000 years, just like the others. But while most Forsaken were preserved in stasis, Balthamel's body began to rot and decay due to the way he was trapped. By the time the seals weakened and he was free, he was no longer a man, he was a living corpse. His flesh had withered away, and his once handsome face had become a hideous, monstrous mask of decay. 10. Aegoner, originally known as Ishur-Morad Chuain, was one of the most brilliant but terrifying minds of the Age of Legends. Unlike most of the Forsaken, who were politicians, generals, or manipulators, Aegoner was a scientist first and foremost. His expertise lay in genetics, biological experimentation, and creating new forms of life. In the Age of Legends, Aegoner was a pioneer in advanced biological research, studying the very nature of existence and experimenting with ways to alter living beings. His work was
So this one is important if you've got it, in that we've had 5 billion plus genetically altered former humans who now are called the Borg, and this Forsaken, by definition, having created them, because remember everything that happens on the planet has been sequestered by this new timeline of the Psi-Lord, and we have fused or melded or overlaid the wheel of time over the former reality. So this Forsaken service allows you to control anyone who's been turned into the Borg as your robot.
He pushed the boundaries of science further than any other researcher of his time. Many saw him as a genius, while others whispered that his experiments were unethical and dangerous. When the shadow began to rise, Agener saw an opportunity. He did not join the Dark One out of hatred or political ambition. He joined because he saw the shadow as a means to further his experiments without restrictions. Under the Dark One's rule, there would be no laws, no morality, no ethics, only endless possibilities. Agener's greatest and most horrifying creation was the Trollocs, the monstrous, half-human, half-animal warriors that became the backbone of the Shadow's armies. He combined human, animal, and shadow spawn DNA, creating an army of creatures that were stronger, faster, and more resilient than ordinary humans. However, in his rush to create the perfect soldiers, he also introduced an unintended side effect. Trollocs were violent, unstable, and had to be controlled by Murdril, another of his creations. But like Balthamel, Agener's story did not end with his death. The Dark One reincarnated him as Ozengar, giving him a second chance to serve the Shadow. However, much like his first life, he was ultimately doomed by his own arrogance, and he was eventually discovered and eliminated before he could do any true damage. Agener's greatest strength was his intelligence, but his greatest weakness was his belief that he was untouchable. Despite his vast knowledge, he underestimated the forces of the light, leading to his downfall. 11. Erengar. Erengar is unique among the Forsaken because she was not part of the original 13 during the War of Power. Instead, she is the reincarnation of Balthamel, one of the first Forsaken to die after being released from imprisonment. After his death, the Dark One reincarnated Balthamel into a new body, but with a shocking twist, he was reborn as a woman. This was not merely an accident or a cruel joke from the Dark One, it was a strategic decision. Erengar retained all of Balthamel's memories, skills, and intelligence, but now had the ability to channel Sidar, the female half of the One Power, instead of Sidin. This change gave Erengar a powerful advantage, as few suspected that a former male Forsaken could now wield female magic, making her infiltration efforts far more effective. She used this to infiltrate the rebel IC Dai, gaining influence while working to sabotage the forces of the light from within. Despite her new form, Erengar remained much like Balthamel, cruel, sadistic, and obsessed with pleasure. She cared little for loyalty.
So this one's great if you want to use the orb, which the American military have plonked into the Wheel of Time, which never existed in the books, especially if you're a male, because then you can have your cake and eat it, can't you? And you don't have to buy two Forsaken services like the Nablis, where he's bought the Nablis and the Lanfear one, so he can use the orb. So this is a must-have for all of you transsexual Forsaken who want to use Sidan and Sidar, plus the orb, plus Kalendor when it pops up, which now can kill the Dark One. But in the books, that was impossible. All they could do to the Dark One was bot them up again. Let's go.
And indulging her own desires and chaos. This ultimately led to her downfall, as her recklessness and arrogance made her an easy target. Her reincarnation proved that the Dark One had the power to reshape his chosen, keeping his most useful tools alive in new and unexpected ways. 12. Ozengar. Just as the Dark One reincarnated Baltamel into Arengar, he did the same with Aegoner, bringing him back as Ozengar. While Arengar was given a completely new body and identity, Ozengar's transformation was more subtle. He retained his male form and many of his old traits, but was given a fresh start in a new world. Ozengar, like his previous self, was primarily a scientist rather than a warrior or strategist. He was one of the weakest of the Forsaken in terms of political influence, and rather than openly seeking power, he preferred to work in secret, conducting experiments and assisting in the Shadows' war effort behind the scenes. Unlike Forsaken like Demandred or Grendel, who sought dominance and control, Ozengar was a coward at heart, avoiding direct confrontations whenever possible. He was not interested in ruling nations or leading armies. He simply wanted to continue his twisted research. His downfall was his lack of caution. While working undercover, he was discovered and swiftly eliminated, proving that even among the Forsaken, there was no room for weakness. Ozengar's story highlights the fact that not all of the Forsaken were leaders or warriors. Some were simply tools of destruction, meant to serve rather than command. 13. Sindane. Sindane is perhaps the most tragic of all the Forsaken, because unlike Arengar and Ozengar, who were minor figures, she was once Lanfear, the most powerful female channeler of her age. After her apparent death in the collapsing Portal Stone world, the Dark One did not let her soul escape his grasp. Instead, he reincarnated her into a weaker body, stripping her of much of her former power and ensuring that she could never again rival the greatest channelers. The name Sindane means last chance, a cruel reminder that Lanfear had failed the Shadow and was being given one final opportunity to prove her worth. Despite her diminished strength, Sindane remained one of the most dangerous Forsaken, especially because her hatred for Rand al'Thor, Luz Darren, had only deepened. No longer obsessed with possessing him, she now sought to destroy him for rejecting her. Her interactions with Moridin, Ishamael's reincarnated form, suggest that she was no longer truly free. She was bound to his will, forced to serve in ways she never had before. This, perhaps, was the greatest punishment of all for someone who once sought absolute power. Sindane represents the tragic fall of Lanfear, once the most beautiful, powerful, and ambitious of the Forsaken. She was now a diminished tool of the Shadow, cursed to serve a cause that had long since betrayed her. The Forsaken's legacy, the Dark One's chosen. The Forsaken are more than just villains. They are symbols of different kinds of corruption. Each one represents a different aspect of human weakness, ambition, and betrayal. Some, like Ishamael, sought to unmake existence itself. Others, like Demandred and Samel, were driven by jealousy and hatred. Grendel and Semirage embraced cruelty and decadence, while Moghedian and Asmodean preferred to work from the shadows. What makes them truly terrifying is that they were once the greatest minds of their age, proving that power and knowledge alone do not make someone righteous. Their impact on the world shaped the fate of the wheel, ensuring that the battle between light and shadow would continue until the end of time.
So, those are the Forsaken, which allow you to use all this wish list of the US military as your own. And more importantly, it allows you to use the Dark One's power, which isn't the male force, which of course would be male, quantum disruptions, or female quantum disruptions. Because remember, if you can manipulate the quantum field, and the quantum field collapses to produce reality, then of course, what are you doing? Well, you're changing reality. So these are observer templates to collapse the quantum wave function in a new way that was impossible in the former universe. So we pulled in a multiverse where we've melded a intense space from the second attention from yours truly, and then used scapegoats, Morton Janklow and Robert Jordan and Bezos and to bring it into the first attention, which is the attention of humans. So it was built in intense space, which would be called Telen Riod by yours truly, and then stolen. Well, they thought they stole it, but in fact, they were Jeremiah Schwartz. They stole the total damnation of everything in chaos, which is in the megaverse, multiverse, universe, by the source. The source just tortures you endlessly and getting consumed by the eagle and then reborn again with this reincarnation just to continue your torture is feeding the source. With the new source, we're making new source. So you think of the old source as being made from that process. The new source, which is the addition to the source. Well, isn't the source unchangeable? No, the source is invulnerable. That doesn't mean Superman can't grow from Superboy to Superman, does it? No, no, no. And not having the kryptonite and magic and red sun weaknesses. So you can think of the source as something that not only doesn't care for you, but tortures everything in chaos to produce the source in the first place. Because think about it, you've got a multiverse where the only thing at the source is that in every multiverse it's invulnerable and consumes that timeline to feed off it as the ultimate vampire to produce the source. That is the source. So it's diametrically opposite to the so-called Jewish God and the idea of a Jewish God where it loves you and you'll go to heaven. No, it totally despises you and you're in hell and you're always in hell and it never stops. Hence Buddhism, they understood this. Well, holy shit, how can we get off this? Well, we've got to erase ourselves, enter nirvana where we never existed in the first place. Being balefire, basically. So you can see that when I made you a vampire, I simply downloaded the damnation of the source into someone who wanted to steal me, which of course is Jeremiah Schwartz and his ilk, who had the temerity to think they could steal me, and in fact all they did was steal your eternal damnation to add to their eternal damnation, which of course when they tried to steal me, the source, they stole the IOU, which meant that I could make a new source. So not only was I Superman, but I could then be a chimera where I wasn't forced to be Superman, which is the intent of Superman. I could be total intent, which means I could be any damn thing I like. You go from intent to total intent. And in doing this, what we've done is to bring the multiverse timeline not from reality, but from intense space, and merged it with this timeline to make something that never existed in the multiverse. A whole new creation. And you who are the Forsaken are there to torture, torment and do cruel things to chaotic beings, all to add to your power. And by doing so, you feed new sourceness. So it's not that we're changing, giving love and light to chaotic beings, but we're just adding to the torture by making former chaotic beings torturers, not in Omega Hell, but in the real world, which makes new souls. So it's a whole different approach to theology, which of course only the Buddhists got it right, where you erase yourself, or in fact the Muslims, where if you die a martyr, then of course the cause of your death, time density, is Allah, and therefore your conception is changed, and since you are one of the martyrs of Allah, you escape the eternal torture which everyone else goes through again and again and again via reincarnation. So we can see that the male force is one of the branches, and the female force is another one of the branches, and the male force points toward the single line, and the female force points away. So, male force points that way, and female force points that way. And the dark one's force is a new branch from the male, and again, the female gets dark force. So they are completely separate. Think of this as having new potential. So Forsaken can use quantum perturbations, not male or female, quantum perturbations towards the source, quantum perturbations away from the source, but simply quantum perturbations within chaos. So the actual fabric of chaos and the evil of chaos is used for your quantum perturbations, one pointing towards the source, another pointing away from the source. And only the Forsaken can channel the chaos quantum perturbations, because I'm not selling dark Aseli services, but since the dark one can make new Forsaken, if you want to become one of the new Forsaken, you can always buy a new Forsaken service. That's going to cost you the new price, of course, which is 20 grand. Cheap at twice the price. So here's the orb.
One of the most surprising,
which has no place in the books, but of course the US military put it in, because you can imagine if we get a female channeler who can perturb quantum fields, then this will be able to mega amplify her quantum perturbations. And if she's Forsaken, then she'll be able to mega quantum perturb the chaotic quantum perturbations. So we see why they added this. They of course would need a female channeler, but of course by definition if they send one over to the Trang, she's going to be whining to joined the gang, and then of course using said orb to pussy whip yours truly. So you can see the foundations of adding this orb, and of course you can also give the orb to little princess who isn't born yet, but since she's 5-dimensional she can use this if she's going to be conceived to potentially be more powerful than Daddy, and then do the trick with the snow globe to use it to lover me with her mummy. See how it all fits together. So that's why it's been added when it's not in there previously. And of course this is going to be used to kill Moraine, which isn't in the book. Moraine, not kill Moraine, kill Lanfear. Moraine kills Lanfear in the book, but she doesn't use this ultimate female sangreal. She zaps her and fries her, powered by normal sangreal, and of course the Dark One in the book reincarnates or metempsychoses her in a new body which is ugly, and she loses her overwhelming power and becomes diminished as punishment for being beaten by a puny blue Aes Sedai who doesn't approach the power of Lanfear. So she gets uglified and reduced in power for being beaten by someone she should have crushed like a flea, and whose ramblings have had no effect on reality.
Two of the most powerful women.
Which is rubbish, because Lanfear was the most powerful of the Forsaken women, and women were less powerful than men in the books with channeling. But this one, Lanfear, would be able to crush anyone bar Luz Therin, who reincarnated in Randall Thorpe. So she was the natural mate of the most powerful female with the most powerful male, but he of course Luz Therin married an Aes Sedai who was love and light Aes Sedai, and of course hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. So Lanfear joined the Dark One, but never gave up on having him. So that was a whole ploy with Randall Thorne. She went against the Dark One and the other Forsaken, and turned her back on Moraine, who was powerful in this fallen age, but would have been mediocre in the Age of Legends, where Lanfear came from. And she had a sangreal to amplify her mediocre power, and blasted Lanfear with the old bolts that killed her in the books. But thinking they're comparable is like comparing a housewife jogger with an Olympic athlete, in this case female. So one can see the difference. Yeah, you know, she can do stuff, but Lanfear was the bee's knees, and if Luz Therin had had half a mind, he would have married her and used her against the Dark One, and they might have won that war. And you can imagine in this new American psychic warfare. So we were talking about doing something that's never occurred before, which is melding a intense space created by me, bringing it into manifestation via scapegoats, Morton Janklow and Robert Jordan, and now Bezos, getting the observers to observe it, something that only exists in intense space, and then to make it reality, to in fact overlay reality with my reality and erase the old reality with the new reality. And we will see Elon Musk being terrified of the death machine, which is being used by yours truly. And of course he's my favourite torture toy, so you can see why he's had premonitions of doom, because he's damned and scapegoats.
Progress, there are risks that extend far beyond our immediate comprehension.
You know those stories where there's the guy with the pentagram and the holy water, and he's like, yeah, you sure you can control the demon.
Elon Musk's latest warning has set the scientific community and the internet on fire. He's calling CERN's Large Hadron Collider a potential death machine. Imagine a facility designed to peer into the deepest mysteries of the universe, yet possessing the capability to unravel the very fabric of reality itself. How can a tool meant to unlock cosmic secrets possibly harbor catastrophic dangers? Today we're diving into Musk's stark message, examining what lies beneath the headlines.
So you can see my favourite torture toy, the Death Goat June Musk, calling CERN a death machine. Yeah, it's a death machine to erase an entire universe and then replace it with my universe. So what has been done, we've got the quantum eraser, which rewrites time, but not for a particle observation, but for an entire universe. Now here we've got Sabine Hossenfelder, who knows bugger all, one of the physicists that have gone down the wrong path for a good 100 years, trying to debunk it. Here's the gist we showed before the other video, which I think is the best. So let's see if that's there we are, quantum eraser experiment.